we're looking at skillet carbonara.
Great. What's a perfect carbonara?
Creamy, definitely. Rich, fatty, with some sharpness. That would be a perfect carbonara for me.
What's wrong with our first carbonara?
I think it had cornstarch in it, right?
It had cornstarch. Yeah, that is, I mean, oh my gosh, that is just, I can't believe we would do such a thing. But we evolved here at Milk Street. The way we got around using a different starch to help you make an emulsion was to actually just use the starch from the pasta, which is why we do a skillet method here. None of that starch leaves the building, if you will. It's all in there. There's a lot of pasta dishes out there that have a creamy sauce, but there's no cream in them, and that is typically the starch, cheese, the fat to create the illusion of cream, if you will. But to make a creamy sauce, you don't need cream. Cream, not a carbonara. I mean, it's one thing I'll put my foot down on. I had kind of a light bulb moment in culinary school where we were making a walnut pesto, and my teacher, funny enough, was from Florence. He kept telling me to add pasta water while tossing this walnut pesto, and I was like, this guy must be crazy, what's going on? And I kept tossing and tossing, and eventually it looked like it had cream in it. It was a creamy, delicious walnut pesto, and it was just pasta water and cheese and walnuts. All of the starch from that pasta is in the water, and you're utilizing that. You're making an emulsion, which is essentially liquid and fat, and there's a lot of, think back to science class when you're in elementary school, oil and water don't mix. So you're essentially trying to force two things together to create something that's delicious. So that's a little intimidating. There's some things we do to force those together. Heat, starch, are probably two of the best ways to do it. Once you get it out of the skillet and if you're tossing in a bowl, I feel like that's it. Like you have to get it there or it's not gonna go. And it's easier to toss in the skillet. It's funny, I feel like every time I make this, even before I worked here and I'd make it at home, like there's always this point where I'm mixing. I'm like, it's not gonna happen. And then it happens. It's kind of an irrational fear. In the same vein as the cacio e pepe, we decided that mixing a little bit of parm with the pecorino does add some depth. Note on guanciale, it's just so much more interesting than pancetta. Pancetta is essentially bacon that isn't smoked, so it's really just kind of salty and crunchy. Guanciale adds a depth of flavor that you don't get with pancetta.
The thing that I remember most about when you were developing this is that like every single time you wanted to bring a plate to Chris, we were all like rushing to get it to him as fast as possible.
That was probably the most stressful part about this. Carbonara, you want to eat right away. That's why I say maybe even out of the skillet. Crowd around it with your friends, everyone grab a fork, and it needs to be eaten right away. You don't want to let it sit. Recipes like this are difficult because people have a really strong opinions on what it should be. The type of pork you use, the cheese. People are very particular about these kind of mother Italian pasta recipes. I think if it tastes good and is reminiscent visually and the flavor profile of carbonara, then it's a carbonara.